Hey, True Believers. Chris Mack coming at you with X Factor number 6. Now, I know this says True Believers number 1, X-Men Apocalypse. This was one of those $1 reprints, which, if you guys want to get the first appearance of Apocalypse but don't want to pay, the value of it right now, because the one that I got lucky, but I did not like the initial price tag on it. But for $1, you get the full story, and this is essentially the real cover minus the X Factor imprint and the trade dressing here. So if you want to see that, I appreciate that they at least put it in the back. But I like the other reprints that they've been doing where they actually put the original ads and it feels like the old school book. But nonetheless, I wanted to go over this because I really enjoyed how they introduced Apocalypse. This is his first full appearance. His cameo was in the last issue, in issue 5. So here you finally get to see him full on display. Now it happens, from what I understand, because I don't have issue 5, is there was this fight in this hotel with the Alliance, I believe is what these people are called, and this, what's he called? The super of this motel realizes it's mutants, and so they try to call in X Factor, because at this point no one knows that X Factor is actually mutants. For those of you that don't know, when Bob Lawton created X Factor, the premise was that they were going to come in and act like mutant exterminators. And they come in, apprehend mutants, and then behind the scenes they train them. And that's how in X Factor where we get introduced to Richter and Boom Boom before they straight off to X-Force. And I think it was the same with Skids and Rusty as well. I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, the print date real quick on this was July 1986. So being that this is in July, this book is now officially 35 years old. So I'm kind of glad that we got a reprint here where the colors are more vibrant compared to a lot of the older original books. Now this is called Apocalypse Now, and Cyclops is inside the hotel, and you can see he's enraged. Why is he enraged? We'll talk about it in a minute. Let's talk about who made this. This is Louis Simonson, writer, Jackson Guise, penciler, Bob McLeod, inker, Joe Rosen, letterer, Pete Scotzi doing the colors, Bob Harris was editor, and Jim Shooter was editor-in-chief at this point. Now, he's not happy because the Alliance essentially got away. And he goes, X Factor handled that like a bunch of amateurs. Let the Alliance walk all over us. And walk out with Mike Nolan and that blasted little junkie. Help them. Mike Nolan is a mutant in this book who can essentially increase your power infinitely. But he can't control it. So what he does is he continues doing what he did before his X gene kicked in, and that is hop up on heroin. Now he is in love with this woman named Susie, so I just kind of want to set the stage for the characters. Now Cyclops, Jean, this book is very dramatic. At this point, everyone believes Xavier to be dead, which he's out in Shi'ar space. Magneto is running the X-Men, so X Factor doesn't trust the X-Men. And then, of course, what really kind of kicked off X Factor is during X-Men, Jean married Madeline Pryor. They had a baby, Nathan Summers. So Cyclops gives the leadership of the X-Men over to Storm. He retires to Alaska. Well, Marvel decided to revive Jean Grey. Cyclops walks out on his family to find Jean. And so at this point, Maddie has no idea where Cyclops is. He and the original 5 members of the X-Men decided to start X Factor. And there's still a lot of there's like frustration and unrest amongst this team. Cyclops is going off calling this Mike character trash and a junkie and a betrayer. And Bobby's trying to say, hey, he didn't betray us. Cyclops won't have none of it. Now, while all this is going on, the melodrama part is Cyclops yells at Jean, who he loves with all his heart, and says, they shouldn't have been able to sneak up on us. We should have had warning. You play me for that, don't you? Because I'm only me now, and not Phoenix. I'll just bet nobody ever got the drop on Phoenix. Is that it, Scott? Don't you understand that energy monster buried me in a cocoon, stole my life with you and the X-Men? And now that I'm awake again, everything's changed. Professor Xavier's gone. His X-Men are being led by our most vicious enemy. And so Jean, like, Cyclops is being a little standoffish with her, and she thinks it's because Cyclops sees her as useless. And we'll get into that in a minute. But in the meantime, because Cyclops won't reveal his marriage to Maddie with Jean, and sadly everyone else knows it, Hank, Bobby, Warren, but it's not their place to say it. But Warren is really playing interference, trying to protect her. And you could see the hurt on his face that he wants to tell her what's going on. Now, I don't want to get more into that. I want you guys to read the book. But we go back to this nearby hideout. This is Mike Nolan. This is his lover, Susie. This is the Alliance. And it says the boss really hates it that we left those mutants at the hotel. He thinks there's like something to the way that they keep showing up. So they're trying to tie in why these mutants keep showing up every time X Factor shows up. So we kind of have this sort of tension happening on this end because these guys don't understand that X Factor are actually mutants yet. So they're just asking Mike, they're like, what's your affiliation to them? And why do these guys always coincidentally show up? And so while Cyclops is thinking that Mike ratted them out, and you can see that he's going through hardcore withdrawals. He's talking about the coincidence of these people. He goes, they're mutants just like us. They've banded together to fight mutant hunters like X Factor. They drove them off. That's all now, please. Please. So as Cyclops is thinking that he ratted them out about what they are, you can see that through his agony and his fear that, because they're using Susie against him for him to use his powers on them, he's still doing his best, trying to redeem himself for the type of life that he led. Now, when Mike gets too hopped up, when they threaten Susie and he doesn't have drugs in his system, he goes nuts with his powers. And it drives, like, if he goes too far, it enhances the other mutants' powers to the point where they can't control him, and it does unpredictable things. And with all that, here, I like that, even though this is the first appearance of Apocalypse in a panel, still shrouded in shadows with these awesome Kirby crackles going on. And he's like, you appear to have forgotten my order, Frenzy. And much as I dislike it, you force me to repeat myself. Michael is to not be damaged. Whatever you did to cause this display will cease immediately. Even I have underestimated the strength of his power and his usefulness. Place him in the monitor machine. He must be quieted at once. So, the monitor machine, we'll get into that in a minute, but I love this panel because you get this brightness here in the background, which adds for that front shadows because, it's backlit. And you still can't see Apocalypse. I mean, you could tell, modern times, he still has his old school display, but you can see that there's a lot to be desired nonetheless, but he's still powerful and in control the way the camera tilts up on him. No, I'm not going to give any more away there, but what I do want to talk about is the X-Men do find out where the Alliance's hideout is. And so Jean and Warren take off, and you could tell that Warren has a thing for Jean. They all did at one point back, if you read the original 63 X-Men #1. But Warren really did before she fell in love with Psyche. And he's like, you ready, Matahari? Whenever you are, 007. And then, because the area is nice where they're at. And Bobby's like, it's really nice up here, isn't it, Scott? It reminds me of Alaska in the summer, where Maddie and I and the baby lived. Scott. And so here's some real talk from a friend. He goes, Scott, you keeping your marriage a secret from Jean. It's tearing her apart. And have you called Maddie? There's no answer, Bobby. I think she left me. Part of me wants to find her, explain about Jean's resurrection, why I had to go to her, make her forgive me, let me come home. But Jean's back in my life now, high on X Factor's promise, eager to rescue a love-sick junkie loser, flying in Warren's arms, talking to him, laughing, and part of me wants to punch their hearts out. I think I must be going mad. So you see how Scott takes things so deeply, but he does make brash decisions. But Jean just suddenly being resurrected from the dead after he'd finally passed on, you can kind of see how that would screw with an individual. And here, I wanted to kind of talk about this where Jean's saying, Warren earlier said with all there was to Scott. What do you mean, was? Well, I was asleep in that cocoon. Scott fell in love with the Phoenix, didn't he? I'm just a pale reflection of her. And it's eating at him till the very sight of me sickens him. That's it. That must be it. And Warren's like, so here's your chance. She deserves to know about Scott's marriage. And you want to tell her. More than you wanted anything in a long time. And yet, why the sudden passion for truth, pal? Or is your passion for something else? So I kind of like how Simonson really sets this up, like what's gonna happen. And that's why I like the X-Men during this time, is it was a little experimental. Things were a little loosey-goosey, and that's okay for me. I thought it made some great storytelling. Plus, we finally, and within the pages of X Factor, this is where we get Apocalypse. This is where we get Archangel, and because it's Archangel, because of Apocalypse. So, he's a household name now. Even though here, something happens that drives Mike over the edge. What is it? Well, you have to read the book as you kind of see this totally memeable face of Apocalypse. It's like the dark brown of Apocalypse faces. But anyway, I don't want to give any more away. This book, there's a few lull parts where you're just like, but being able to see Apocalypse and how to this day he still holds that powerful image when he enters a room. The dynamic of Scott being married to Maddie, not revealing it to Jean. Jean cutting herself short because she doesn't understand why Cyclops is keeping her at arm's length, which is causing Warren to gravitate towards her. So yes, it's a melodrama, but just like how Claremont said in his Amazon documentary, he said it was never, about the action. He said it was about the story of these characters' lives. And that's why we care, because we want to know what's going to happen to our friends that we read weekly. And that's what makes it so special. And, at that time, Ann Nasanti, Claremont, and Louise Simonson were tight-knit and worked on these books together. So this feels like something Claremont would do because they'd all flesh this stuff out together. So an excellent read, guys. Highly recommend picking it up. Gorgeous artwork, as you saw. Everything that you want in a book. So if you have, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and either get a $1 reprint, or if you got deep pockets, then go ahead and grab an original copy of issue 6. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little X bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with y'all down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.